I'm Tom Gualtieri.
And I'm David Sisco.
Welcome to Series 2 of Draw the Circle Wide, which explores the need for more equity in the theater.
In each episode, we interview a gifted Broadway performer, having in-depth conversations about their life and their work as an artist, and what needs to change in the industry. Then we craft a song just for them based on their interview.
As our industry continues to have long overdue conversations about race, equity, and inclusion, we want to use this series to celebrate performers who come from communities that have been underrepresented in the theater and create work for these artists by listening to their voices.
All I feel is the silk like a bandage upon my skin.
In this episode, we talk to Elle Morgan Lee, who is an Obie Award-winning actress best known for her performance in the Pulitzer Prize-winning musical A Strange Loop. Other credits include The Fae, Way Station and the Stars, and a slew of other new works in New York-based and regional theaters. As an openly trans actress, she is dedicated to being a part of theater works that center underrepresented voices both on stage and screen. Elle Morgan gracefully opened up to us about her journey, and she made the conversation so easy. She was straightforward, kind, funny, and self-effacing. We just loved talking to her.
It's you.
We want to know a little about your formative years. What brought you to study at the University of Arts in Philadelphia?
I looked at schools, and I mean, sort of the roundabout way of doing things, I knew people from Ellington that went to University of the Arts, and some of my favorite people from Ellington who I respected the most went to University of the Arts. So for me, it was just like, that was the only school I applied for. And it was like, I mean, I'm an only child, so I'm a little bit sort of, I was not one to venture out to all these sort of big name schools that I didn't know anyone at, and I didn't know anything about the towns. So then I auditioned. I mean, I was a little full of myself. Because I'm thinking about the audition process. Like, I didn't go to the school to audition. I was like, I'll go in as a voice major, and then I will switch to musical theater once I get there, because I don't feel like doing videotapes with a monologue and dancing, all that kind of stuff. So I'll just do a videotape with singing, and then if I get in, then I will go in as a voice major and switch. So I was like, most voice teachers I gotten that far were like, happy to play with me, kind of a thing. So I was like, I feel like that's sort of an easy way in, and thank God it worked out, because then once I get in, I switched to musical theater.
And so you were always interested in performing in theater and ever since you were young. Yeah.
Always. Mm-hmm.
Are there any particular roles that you would see yourself playing?
So, I mean, I have a few years left in the right size theater, but Cinderella has always been something that I wanted to touch, like desperately wanted to touch. Irene Malloy in Hello, Dolly. Adelaide in Guys and Dolls is something I've gotten like called back for a couple times at this point. So like I wanted to play with. Dot in Sunny in the Park with George is literally my dream role. Belle in Beauty and the Beast. There's a conversation she has with the Beast, where she talks about, like, in my town, I know what it feels like to be the monster. I know what it feels like to be not understood. So that, Fosca in Passion. I mean, like, Jekyll and Hyde is something that, like, pops up in my mind every once in a while. Like, I would love a Lucy moment. I think people would assume that I would want an Emma moment. But the reality is I have a very specific sound in my head for what Emma should be. And that, in the conversation about voice, for instance, that sort of starts triggering my own dysphoria. And like, I will never be what I think Emma should actually sound like. No matter what my timbre might allude to some folks that it might be able to do, it's like, it does not do that. So that's something that I would love. For the most part, the things that I like tend to be the women that are in the center of the narrative.
You mentioned in your bio that you are a seeker of light, which is such a beautiful way of putting it, and to have it be in your bio, I think which is really so much a part of our credo. I think it's really powerful. Can you tell us a little bit about what that means to you?
all the things that the little voices in our minds want us to run away from. I want to be an example of what happens when you shut them out. What happens when you just move forward. And that also scares me too, but I think it's something that like, I would like to be a vessel for light, someone that shows that like you can hush the darkness, you can hush the voices behind you, you can choose to find light. I can't believe that the universe has my back if I don't apply it to everything in my life. So it's something where I say, I can ask the universe for the world that I want to live in. I can put out this energy of what I want the world to be like, but I can't tell the universe how to get us there.
When was the moment you found yourself and said to yourself, yeah, this is who I am. I am taking this. I'm taking ownership of this thing.
It's like a start of like an awakening. I could say like the first time, sophomore year of college on Halloween, when I wore girls' clothes, women's clothes, whatever that means now, women's clothing for the first time on like Halloween, and the mission was like, we were all just gonna be like prostitutes. And it was like this, like, of course we're all being sort of whatever slutty version of Halloween things you need to be for college Halloween when you're like 19. I think we had a Halloween party at my house. And I felt like it was a safe space to play. And there was a thing of like, I had never felt more comfortable. And like, there was a power that I felt that I had never had before. And I didn't want to, take it off afterwards. And like, it's one of those things where like people are very, people are quick to like throw like, oh, Halloween, like it's a costume it's putting on. But like for someone who had never really had a chance to explore in that way, it was a sort of a moment of awakening for me. And like every year and every opportunity I could do that.
Ask if your voice has changed since you transitioned, and if so, how?
I don't think that my voice has changed so much in any way that it would have already changed just from age. I think that what changed is I was able to start giving myself the permission to speak a bit more the way that voice teachers for years have been trying to get me to speak. If I'm speaking in a place that like is actually comfortable for me and that actually feels like free and like easy to speak, like this is a nice, easy spot for me to speak in. This also puts me in so much danger, I think, on the street in cities like New York, where it makes people sort of feel like they can kind of walk all over me. And I think that there is sort of like there's a gentleness to my sound if I'm just being like true and like speaking on my breath and this is where I should be. If I'm being true to that and speaking the way I'm supposed to, there's a gentleness that I don't know that it serves me well every day being on the streets in New York with toxic men around me who are likely to take advantage of that.
Thank you for sharing that. And hearing that too, I think especially when we think of New York as kind of like this bastion of liberalism, I mean, you sharing that experience, I think is very potent.
It's like not even specific about me being trans. It's just women sort of are treated a certain way on the street. Cis women, when they feel threatened or feel something coming against them, can pitch their voices deeper and sort of take authority and strength there. And I feel like the fear of being a trans person in those instances is if I pitch my voice in a deeper place, there's this fear that like suddenly I'll be like found out, and suddenly that might mean violence. That might mean I get beat up. That might mean I get killed, for all I know. That could mean anything. The idea of having to defend myself physically on the street is like, it's actually very frightening to me. I don't want to hit people because if I do break and like let that wall down, there's a lot of rage inside that like could easily be could be targeted in that one direction. And then like, there I am laying with blood on my hands going, well, you pushed me. Like this light creature just broke. And like, I let out the like, you know, the rage of the world that I really want to change on you. Because I am a pretty binary trans woman, people just sort of assume right away, oh, well, you like men, boom, boom, boom. And there's even an assumption of like the kind of man, because I think people just sort of societally put, oh, well, you must like these like really, you know, big, strong, sort of, you know, throw you over their back kind of men. And it's like, well, I mean, maybe. I don't know that I've ever dated anybody like that, but like, like I mean, I don't mind being with a man who has a little sugar in his cup. Like, I'm okay with that too. Like, I don't put limits on who a person is. I am more interested in being with someone who sees me clearly. I think that at the core, people do have the intention of trying to get to know or trying to understand. But I think it's that we are so used to just going through the things that we experience and we know to understand other people instead of allowing that person to share themselves with us.
Yeah.
I've been asked to chat with people, or I've been asked my opinions on things, and I think that there was an assumption of what I would say. And then when I did not say that, or when that experience was not one that was mine, when the experience that sort of society has deemed what a Black trans woman should say, and this is how a Black trans woman feels. And it's like, well, but I didn't feel that way. And that wasn't my upbringing. And that wasn't like, my family is very supportive. Like my experience is not trans enough, or my experience is not Black enough. It really wasn't until I got to New York, quite frankly, that I was then reminded that I am Black and what that is supposed to mean and what that is supposed to sound like. And like, that was something that I was sort of, it took me back for a moment. And then when I started to be vocal about gender, then I just started getting presented with what I'm supposed, if I'm a Black trans woman, then what I'm supposed to be.
Have you ever had a situation where you've been through where you're like, why is nobody writing the scene and song to this moment? Because this is like literally a scene in a musical. Have you ever had that experience?
Oh God, my whole life. I don't know that I could like sing. I don't know that I could single out a moment. But when I walked into the apartment that I live in right now, we've been looking at places, you know, all day. I stepped in the doorway and was like, oh, no, this is it. This is home. And he was like, wait, what do you mean? Like, you haven't even, I was like, no, this is home. I know it is. And I like walked through. I was like, well, I guess I should actually like walk through to see the details. But like, this is my apartment. And like, we walked through and I was like, yeah, no, this is it. Even these like inclusivity conversations, it's like so many of them are just about Black and white and not about the number of other intersections that are affected by stories and by things. Like, why do I need to be a size 2 to tell a story about love? We all believe, and we all love, we all have lost, we all have all these things. And it's like, what are we so afraid of? Is it that through the eyes of those marginalized groups that white people will then have to see themselves? Or is it that they just don't care? And I was like, I don't believe that it's that they don't care. I do think there's a fear of, we will then see how these groups think of us. And like the reality is we're not thinking about white people in our own stories half the time. So like there's plenty of culture and life in our lives without whiteness being surrounding it. It's like very important to me that like when I do get a chance to do some of these tracks and things that I've dreamed of doing, or I'm gonna say when I do get a chance to do them, that they're not then just sort of marginalized into this, oh, well, now it's Black trans Cinderella. And it's like, well, no, it's Cinderella, because, and in this moment, we don't know if Cinderella is trans or not, because that's not actually a part of this story. So if that helps you as an audience member, you know, young trans person in the audience, if that helps you to see yourself, then Cinderella is trans. But cis woman in the audience, if it helps you to think that Cinderella is cis, that's great for you too, because we're not discussing that in this show. So like, it's not a part of it. I think that it is important to see that on Broadway. How do you want to get more people who don't look like the same audiences Broadway has coming in there? You put more people on stage. You put more people that reflect those groups on stage so that they have a reason to buy the ticket. I was brought in for, like, for instance, for a production of Working. You know, all the characters were listed as, you know, all ethnicities, and as they always do. And then there's the one, you know, Cleaning Women, that was listed as Black specifically. And I was like, interesting that all of the other tracks are all ethnicities, but Cleaning Women is Black. And wait, what are they calling me in for? They're calling you in for Cleaning Women. And I went, Cleaning Women, me, interesting. And I said to my reps, I was like, I just want you all to note that, like, I just want you all to note, look at the sides. Cleaning Women's sides was Cleaning Women. And there's no sections where there's just ad lib and all these things around it. Just a Housewife was Just a Housewife, the entire song. It was a side with a scene. It was a monologue. It was another scene. And I was like, do we see, like, the differences in what, and this track is listed as Black, and this track is listed as all ethnicities, but yet there seemed to be surprise when I was in the room there to sing for it, before you've even heard me sing. So like, so it's like, this is just a really, it's like, I would love to be in a space where I can come into a room and just tell the story, giving the actor a little bit more agency to tell you the stories that affect them, is ultimately going to make the stories be told more effectively.
So I have an idea about El Morgan's song. We were talking earlier today about Ahmed's song about not being too on the nose with things. Yeah. And this may be an idea that's too on the nose, but it's also, I think, kind of a bold idea, because it's something El Morgan alluded to more than once in the course of our conversation with her. And the two things that come together for me were the first time she put on women's clothing at Halloween, and how moved I was by the story she told about that.
Yeah.
And the second thing was this lighter idea about her walking into the apartment she was looking for and being like, this is it. And both of those moments have, like, the same kind of emotional revelation, or the same kind of intellectual revelation, a feeling, a sense that this is the right thing.
Yeah. And
I'm trying to find a way to parallel those two things, and maybe find a third thing that would give us expand it out to the rule of three.
I had the exact same. That's literally what I was going to talk to you about today, because that's great. Well, no, that means we're on the same page, and yeah, because I see that, and we may find a third thing, but I don't even think that we necessarily need it. I mean, the idea of being at home, being, of what home means. I mean, I happen to think of, The Wiz.
When I think of home, I think of a place where there's love overflowing. I wish I was home. I wish I was back there with the things I've been knowing. Wind that makes the tall bend into leaning. Suddenly the snowflakes that fall have a meaning. Yeah, it's a really good song.
It's a great song.
Learning who you are is something that we all go through.
Yeah.
The specifics of it are different for every individual.
Right.
And for a trans person, I think that challenge is that much more elevated.
Absolutely.
It's so beyond most people's experience, but it still shares that feeling of, oh my God, I suddenly know who I am, right? I know who I need to be.
Yeah.
I know who I'm meant to be.
There's a conversation constantly going about, trans women taking away from cis women. And it's like, I'm not looking to take away. I'm looking to add more. I'm looking to bring more to the room all around for all of us, not for, I don't want to take your space. I want to, hone my own and make sure that there's room and more space for you to be there too. A Strange Loop is a good example of this, is that my track in A Strange Loop is a track for a woman. Like that track, very easily they could have have to be trans specific now because I'm there, but that's not what the track is. Just a woman's track. So if I'm not there, that could very well be a cis woman in that space, and like a trans girl made room. A trans girl made that space possible. It was not written that way when I got attached to the project. That track has evolved as I have evolved.
Privilege is very blind. You do not realize you have it because it is the only way that you know. So it's like, and that is white privilege, that is male privilege, that is pretty privilege, that is wealth. It's like, there's so many different kinds of privilege to like play with. And like, we don't do a good job of sort of dissecting we don't do a good job of like self-reflecting on the types of privileges that we have until we're made aware of them.
You just made a great segue to the thing that we're here to discuss, which is the fact that we asked you about your press at home, and you made us aware of a kind of privilege that we never even considered.
I didn't realize that was a thing until I read your email. This idea even of like my name being brought up in a newspaper in my hometown actually was a little frightening. Like I immediately thought like, oh my God, like what? And for me, it was also, I don't care because I wouldn't necessarily see it. But to me, it's like, how would my mom feel about it? Like, because then there would be attention drawn to her in a way that like, she maybe isn't necessarily ready to take on or to deal with or to, because that's immediate. That's like, in the neighborhood, that's in your direct home. It just brings up conflict that I don't necessarily know that some people are really ready to deal with. I'm actually someone who's more comfortable than most people I know who are trans talking about the past. Because I have been in rooms full, I guess it's not really something to haha, but I've been in rooms with people where like the subject of the past comes up and it's as if it never existed altogether for people. And like, to me personally, I don't find that to be the most healthy space to be in, to act like a check, to sort of block off a chunk of your life. But I'm also not a trans person who dealt with lots of trauma and heavy depression and all these sorts of things. I didn't have that in my past. So me looking back to the past was seeing someone who didn't have all the pieces together, but who was happy. So there was I didn't have these sort of debilitating dysphoria killing me, and I didn't have those feelings growing up. I just knew something was off. And so me talking about certain things is maybe a little simpler than others who had a harder time in terms of like mental health getting through those periods of their lives. You need to learn to love and embrace all of yourself fully, meaning the before as well, because that's part of what got you to the now. And I think that journey is not just for trans people. That's for all of us in so many ways. We've all dealt with so much in our past that we need to get through in order to truly be able to be free now.
When this came up with the press, I was like, oh my God, I hope we didn't offend Elle Morgan. And then I was like, no, of course we didn't. That's not her.
But we also want to say we're sorry. And thank you for taking the time to allow us to see our privilege.
I would say, and even like it's funny when I talk with, in particular when I talk with white people, and the conversations of privilege come up, it's like, I think that people should also understand that like I said, there's so many different spaces of what privilege is. Like I'm also a very privileged person in a lot of ways. So like I don't, because I think that there is a narrative out there in particular about Black trans people that we are just all completely, disenfranchised and uneducated and have no social means and have no financial means and we have nothing. And we are all just sort of in this space of, please help me, I need. And like, for me, that it makes me feel in a lot of ways very othered, because I'm like, I don't have any of those things. Like, I'm okay. Like, I would like to believe a number of trans people who are Black, who were educated and who have supportive families and who are not dealing with the same journey as the main narrative that is put out there about us. So like in the conversations about privilege, I'm always like, I just don't want people to sort of assume that I'm looking at you saying, you are so privileged and you've got this and you've got this and look at me, because it's like that's actually not the case at all for me. Like, I'm like, yes, you are privileged. Yes, you have white privilege and you have male privilege, but like there are probably many other privileges that you have that I also have. So I can't really I can't stand in a space of judging them, because I'm also checked on them too. And I'm Black and trans. So it's like I don't know, it's a part of the privilege conversation that I always have to throw out there.
We talked about this idea about I don't know how to encapsulate it, about arriving at knowledge about yourself. Yeah. In the case of Elle Morgan, it involves a couple of things: the apartment story, which is really important, and the first time she puts on women's clothes at Halloween, which is so moving. And I kind of want to try and incorporate those two things into one song, but I don't know yet if I'm entirely comfortable with it, and I want to run it by Elle Morgan. So I don't know if I should call her, if we should email her.
Let's email her, because I'm actually in a place where I've done a first edit of her episode, and I'd love to send it to her and get her opinion on it. So maybe we can
that's good.
Do both, and then if she wants to hop on a call or Zoom, we can do that.
Yeah, and then I can look at the edit as well.
Perfect.
Good, and then we'll get her input on the first draft of the interview.
Perfect.
Okay.
Done. All right. I'll shoot her an email and we'll go from there.
Great.